Shine away the
Yes, sir.
you can start more.
Okay, sir. So my voice is clear, sir?
Yeah, your voice is loud and clear. There is no technical issue. You can proceed.
Okay, sir. The flags are flying. The balloons are ready for release. It's a great day, one we've been planning and waiting for. I'm sure you'll concur. This is an agreement. It's a pleasure to host this webinar. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Sanavya of second year from the Department of Biotechnology. Biozine and Research Laboratory of Bannari Amman Institute of Technology have collaboratively planned for an industry academia webinar series on the topic the job and research perspective. Every 100 years, Earth is threatening humanity with pandemics beginning from 1720 and still continuing in 1720 plague, 1820 cholera, 1920 Spanish flu, and in 2020 the coronavirus. When the whole world welcomed the new year with many solutions, no one expected it to be so disastrous and deadly. COVID-19 became an uninvited guest who is still hesitant to leave. Coronavirus, which has led to around 3 crore cases and 4 lakh deaths, is ruling the world like a king. The World Health Organization is identified SARS type of coronavirus. COVID-19 is a disease caused by SARS-CoV-2. The current scientific consensus is that the virus is mostly origin from bats or other closely related mammals that can trigger respiratory tract infection. It can affect the upper respiratory tract or the lower. The outbreak quickly spread around the world, caused the pandemic. In this webinar, we origin, evolution of SARS-CoV-2, and deep tech solutions to unravel the secrets of COVID-19 culprits, various technologies underlying the production of vaccines, dominant approaches in SARS-CoV, advancements in therapeutic approaches for COVID-19 diagnosis, and drug discovery using computational method. We cordially welcome our head of the Selvi, Raja Sitarama, Mr. Raja Sitarama, Mr. Jayvel Karthik, Mrs. Janani, and my fellow friends. I request Dr. S. Selvi to speak about the lab and achievements.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear my voice?
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am. We can hear you, ma'am.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. With our student, I joined to welcome Ms. Christina, ma'am, training, assistant manager training, Biozine, for this event. So, welcome you, ma'am. And our department. So, we are conducting this event, virtual webinar, germ game. So, to make an industry institute collaboration and to serve the young society with knowledge on the current research in life science. So in this regard, I thank Biozine for accepting our invitation and collaboration for conducting such an webinar, virtual webinar with a beautiful time gap and giving the young minds with nurturing knowledge on COVID-2. So in this situation, this type of interaction science community is very much needed and it is encourageable. So I thank Biozine for accepting collaboration. And with this, I'll introduce about our department and college. So we Bannari Amman Institute is an autonomous institute affiliated to Anna University, Chennai, and our department of established in the year 2002. Since then, we have UG and PG programs. Also recognized research center for pursuing PhD under Anna University, Chennai, and also QIP research background, our department runs with and total strength of around 500 plus students altogether with UG and PG. So our department have 6 research laboratories funded by various government funding agencies. Apart from that, we have 5 special laboratories which our management encourages to serve the students with ample knowledge on current research projects to encourage the research mind among the students. These type of special laboratories have been generated. In this, our laboratory, bioprospecting research laboratory, is one among them. So we focuses on, our vision is to focus on product development, commercialization, and shaping our students to expert in all the techniques and technology which are involved in the commercial world. In this aspect, our department gives guidance for developing product, participating in various competitions and events, and also they guide to make startups. So and they excel in various activities. So to highlight some among them, our students got first prize in AICTE MHRD AICTE conducted program on Fight Corona Ideathon with a cash award of 50,000, and second prize was backed by some students in national level symposium, and also they got special prizes in Atmanirbhar Bharat hackathons. And they also participated in many events like TNSI 2020, which is an Ideathon camp participation. And also they participated in and they received Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Young Research Fellowship with a financial support of rupees 25,000 for pursuing their research in product development. And then they got fellowships like a Waste to Wealth Fellowship, and with an cash award of with an fellowship of 1,000 per month. Apart from that, this month also they have participated and got first place in MedTech and Biotech Vichalathon. So these are some of our students' achievement who have enrolled in our bioprospecting research laboratories. Apart from this, they file patent, they develop products, and they are working in multifarious areas of research under bioprospecting laboratory. We have 3 different domains in which the students will be based on their interest, they will be splitted and they will be working on. So this is the overview of about our institute, department, and our lab. So with this small introduction, so I welcome all the participants who have participating from various institutes and our own institute for participating in this webinar series. And I once again welcome Ms. Christina Madam, and I thank Biozine Company for accepting this. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am. We would like to welcome Ms. Christina Rossi, who is a certified bioinformatician, protein modeling, and drug designer. She has completed her PG in the year 2011 in Kalasalingam University, Krishnakoil, Tamil Nadu. She is also qualified in TNSET 2016. She has organized a number of student workshops and faculty development programs. She has delivered invited lectures during workshops organized by educational institutions. As in present, she is working as an assistant manager training in Biozine Biotech Labs, Bangalore.
Thank you for your nice introduction. First of all, I would like to apologize for the delay. Due to some technical issues, it was delayed a few minutes. And I would like to introduce about our company before starting my talk. I think I'm audible, right?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible. You're audible.
Okay. Thank you for thank you for organizing this event and giving me an opportunity to give a talk in this event. Uh, Especially, I would like to thank the head of the department, Dr. Tamil Shelby, and Mr. Rajasita Rama and Mr. Jayvel Karthik for organizing this event, for jointly organizing this event with Biozine. And to tell a few words about Biozine. And can you change the slide? Next slide, please. Oops. Okay, shall I share my screen?
You can share. Now I'll stop my screen, then so that you can share your.
Okay. 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 Right. And this is our company Biozine, which is located in Kothanoor, Bangalore. We are actually manufacturing bioreactors, and which is used for production of biopharmaceutical products in various companies. We are actually supplying our bioreactors for the production of vaccines and other important biopharmaceuticals. We also manufacture customized bioreactors with respect to the requirement of industries. So being a manufacturer of bioreactors, we also have established a facility, a GMP modeled biopilot laboratory, which is in our campus. So we use that facility only for training the industrial personnels as well as graduates and students. So these are some pictures of our facility. And we have four important modules on which we are providing training: mammalian cell culture, microbial fermentation technology, cleaning, sterilization and filtration, downstream processing technology. So what are the advantages or opportunities in Biozine training? So as I told you, we have a state-of-the-art facility, which is established in an 800 square feet area. And we have a GMP modeled biopilot laboratory. We are not only having this laboratory here, we actually help people to establish such GMP facilities in various industries. We are equipped with upstream and downstream equipments, and we have MOEs with more than 15 plus colleges, universities all over the country. And we usually, every year, more than 150 graduates, industry persons are getting trained from our training facility. And we have recruitment partnership with various biopharmaceutical companies. We do placement assistance to those who are getting trained in our facility. So this is about our company. And now I think I can move on to the lecture. So since it is already late. So my talk is about origin and evolution of coronaviruses. So as we are all aware, now the world is everywhere we are hearing only the word pandemics, COVID-19, coronaviruses. Okay, these are the terms which we often hearing all these words, all these terms. So coronaviruses are named based on their structure because they have crown-like spikes on their surface, and they belong to the family Coronaviridae. So they are infecting especially vertebrates, including humans, birds, bats, snakes, mice, and other wild animals. Since the mid 1960s, 7 known human coronaviruses have been identified. Okay, 4 commonly detected coronaviruses are 229E, OC43, NL63, and HKU1. So all these four commonly detected coronaviruses, they are not that much harmful. So they are actually respiratory pathogens, which has low virulence in humans. And some of the epidemiological studies are reporting that coronaviruses cause about 15% of common colds. So as I told you, they are not that much harmful. The strains which I mentioned, the four different strains, 229E, OC43, HKU1, and NL63. So they will be causing mild to moderate upper respiratory tract illness. There are coronaviruses which are deadly actually. So I told there are 7 strains which were found to be infecting human. Out of the 7, 4 are actually not that much harmful, but the other 3, including the one which we are experiencing now, are very harmful, or we can call it as a deadly coronaviruses. They are actually infecting the lower respiratory tract. So they are actually SARS-CoV-1 or SARS-CoV. In this talk, I'm going to represent it as SARS-CoV. And Middle East Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus, MERS-CoV, and SARS-CoV-2. That is what we are experiencing now. So coming to the respiratory tract infection, as I told you, it can be our respiratory system can be divided into upper respiratory tract and lower respiratory tract. And if you see which viruses will be infecting upper respiratory and lower respiratory tract, as you see here. So the upper respiratory tract infections are not that much harmful. It can be causing common cold and other symptoms which can be easily cured. But lower respiratory tract infections are caused mainly by influenza viruses and other SARS viruses, which will cause pneumonia and other medical conditions such as acute lung injury, acute respiratory distress syndrome, septic shock, and multi-organ failure. So coronavirus is causing the lower respiratory tract infection. That is how it is becoming deadly. The strains that I mentioned last, the 3 strains, right? They are actually causing lower respiratory tract infections. So if you see the pathogenesis, this is our alveoli. So each alveolus is actually a sac, right? Here, this is actually the red colors are arteries and blue color are veins, and these are all alveoli sacs. Okay. So the coronavirus can enter into each of these alveolus. That is how it is called as lower respiratory tract infection. And this is a comparison between the healthy alveolus and injured alveolus. As you can see, this is the blood vessel that is, we have seen 2 types of blood vessels, right? And one will be collecting CO2 from the blood and the other will be distributing oxygen to the blood, right? So here, this is such a blood vessel, and you can see the difference between the healthy alveolus and injured alveolus. So this is an inflamed alveoli, the right side part, which is showing cellular debris because it is caused by the macrophages will start producing cytokines, and not only macrophages and other cells. Neutrophil infiltration will happen. You might have studied in immunology. From the blood vessels, and that will be traveling into the alveoli, and that will produce cytokines and other factors which will be fighting with the coronavirus. And we can also see CD8 positive T cells, which will actually kill the cells which are infected with virus. Because of that, cell debris and proteins will be distributed all over the alveoli. That will cause a fluid to get accumulated inside the alveoli, not only in this alveoli, but also in the interstitium, the space between the blood vessel and the alveoli. Because of that, fluid buildup will be there in the alveoli, as you can see here, and that is the cause of pneumonia. Pneumonia is nothing but the fluid buildup in the lungs, and that is how we get respiratory failure or suffocation because of
Ma'am. Christina, can you hear me, ma'am? Can you hear me? Christina, ma'am, this is Jay Karthik, ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am?
Illa. Can you?
Yes, now it is audible, ma'am.
Okay, okay. It is okay now?
No, it's okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So I'm now going to talk about all the 3 deadly coronaviruses: SARS-CoV, SARS-CoV-2, and MERS-CoV. So SARS-CoV is a virus which was emerged in November 2002 in China, right? And then after that, it was subsequently transported to Hong Kong in February 2003, from where it spread globally to 29 different countries. So this was considered as an epidemic, not a pandemic, because it was not globally distributed, but it was actually interrupted by July 2003. From July 2003, from 2004, there was no reported case of SARS-CoV. It is now believed that we have stopped that virus completely. And coming to MERS-CoV have emerged in May 2004. It actually, the outbreak was first found in Jordan in April 2012. After that, it also passed to different countries. And till now, there are many sporadics are happening. Sporadics is here and there, some outbreaks are happening, right? Even the last case was reported in 28th March 2020 in Riyadh. So still it is going on, and it is considered as an endemic virus. Endemic meaning the spread of the disease is enclosed in a particular area. So it affected many countries. I mean, but not all the countries in the world, as you can see in the map. Coming to COVID-19, as we all know, currently we are undergoing a very big pandemic. Why it is called as a pandemic? Because it spread all over the world, all the countries, without any exception. And first, it was reported in December 2019 in China, Wuhan, China, and it almost spread to all the countries. And this was a map which was this update was made in 23rd June. So the SARS-CoV-2, the name was given to this virus by 11 February 2020. And this is the reason for the current pandemic. And so coming to the epidemiology, as it was already mentioned in the introduction, up to 5th July 2020, there were 183 million confirmed cases and about 4 million deaths, 3.9 million deaths. Okay, no virus has made such a big pandemic in the history. So comparing all these 3 viruses, if you see, when it was reported, it is SARS-CoV-2 is reported in December. First case was reported in December 2019. Here it is 2002. MERS-CoV was reported in 2012, right? recent status, now we are currently undergoing the pandemic caused by SARS-CoV-2, but we are now in a conclusion that we have completely controlled SARS-CoV. MERS-CoV is still endemic in some countries. Here and there reports are coming, which is caused by MERS-CoV virus. And if you see the death rate and number of deaths, above 3.9 million in SARS-CoV-2, but very less in SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV. Only 774 all over the world, and 876 deaths are caused by MERS-CoV. So how these viruses are spreading, from where they are coming, where they are actually residing, and how they are coming to human. So it is believed that these viruses are spread to human by animal hosts. So the outbreaks of all the human coronaviruses are related to interactions between humans and animals. If you see, SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2 both emerged from wet markets in China. So early SARS patients were associated with wild animal markets. In the case of 2002 SARS-CoV, the patients who were reported to the hospital with respiratory failure and other symptoms related to coronavirus infection, they were found to be having interaction with the wet markets. So about in a study, they found that out of 4 patients, 3 were having contact history with the palm civettes. Palm civettes are kind of cats, which will be their meat is people from China, they are having it as a food. So 3 out of 4 patients, they had a contact history with this palm civettes from the wet markets of China. So similarly, they have checked the palm civettes from the farms where they are growing this palm civettes. These animals which are grown in the farmhouses were not having coronaviruses. They were negative to coronaviruses, whereas palm civettes which were in the market are found with coronaviruses. They are positive. So it indicates that no widespread infection occurs in wild civettes, wild in the sense farm rearing palm civettes, but whereas from the wet market only it has been spreaded. So during the trading activities or during from any other animal, this coronavirus may be spreaded to this palm civettes. And what is actually natural hosts or natural reservoirs? Actually, there are some animals or some organisms which will act as a natural reservoir, which will be having this virus permanently, and they'll not be causing the disease to the reservoir. The viruses will not cause the disease to the reservoir, but when it is spreaded from the reservoir to other animals or other organisms, it will cause the disease. So for all most of the viruses, there is a natural reservoir. So similarly, for coronaviruses, bats are considered as natural reservoirs or natural hosts. So they have confirmed this by isolating various viruses from the bats. A strain of SARS-like coronavirus was isolated from Chinese horseshoe bats, and they are having 88-92% genomic identity to the human coronaviruses. So that was the first study. After that, many such studies were reported, which are showing similarity between the human coronaviruses and bat coronaviruses. So this was found in MERS coronaviruses also. MERS coronavirus is showing similarity with sequence similarity with bat coronaviruses. So this clearly shows us that bats could be the natural reservoirs of coronaviruses. And this is a kind of bat which is called as horseshoe bat, which is actually coming under the family microbats. Microbats are actually weighing 4 to 28 grams. So they are very small in size. And they are actually fly slowly, and they only low on the ground, low over the ground. So they eat insects, and they are found to be the natural reservoirs of many SARS coronaviruses. And during the spreading of the MERS coronavirus, they found some of the viruses are present in the camels. Dormitory camels are actually found with coronaviruses which are having sequence similarity with human coronaviruses, meaning some from the natural reservoir, the virus has been spreaded to camels. From camels, it may be spreaded to human. So usually the scenario is like this: natural reservoir will be having the virus, directly or indirectly it will be spreaded to the humans. So directly, in the sense, the natural reservoir itself will be contacted by a human and they'll get the disease, or indirectly through an intermediate organism. So this direct transmission is actually not accepted by many of the scientists, and they are claiming that some intermediate organism will be there which will be getting the virus from the reservoir and will be spreaded to the human. So coming to how CoV2, SARS-CoV-2 have been emerged. So it is also associated with the wet markets in China. And initially they were having, scientists found that SARS-CoV-2 is having a high similarity with a kind of virus which is isolated from horseshoe bat. This virus is called as RATG13. So this RATG13 is a virus which is isolated from Yunnan, a place in China. The Yunnan has a lot of caves which accommodates a lot of horseshoe bats. From these bats, many viruses were isolated. One among them is RATG13. This RATG13 is now showing a similarity with SARS-CoV-2. So people believe that SARS-CoV-2 have been emerged or evolved from RATG13. And another study demonstrated that viruses which are present in pangolin. Pangolin is coming under anteater family. Anteaters, they are insectivores and they'll eat insects. So some coronaviruses which are present in pangolins were also having similarity with human coronaviruses, and they found that the similarity between RATG13 and similar between human coronavirus and pangolin coronavirus. When comparing these two, pangolin coronavirus has more similarity with human coronavirus. So they are claiming that from pangolin, this SARS-CoV-2 might have been emerged. So there are different theories about this. I told you RATG13 is a virus which is isolated in horseshoe bat, and pangolin coronavirus was also isolated from pangolin. So when we are comparing these two sequences with human coronavirus sequence, sometimes, if you take the whole genome, RATG13 is having high similarity with human, right? I'll show you a picture. So if you take the whole genome, right, the human coronavirus is having higher similarity with RATG13, right? So it is pangolin CoV is not coming under this clade. But when you consider the RBD, receptor binding domain of the spike protein of coronavirus, with a 5 amino acid motif, if you can find that, see, the motif is conserved in pangolin coronavirus and the human coronavirus, SARS-CoV-2. Same amino acids, LFQNY, the same LFQNY is there in pangolin, right? So whole genome sequence, if we are comparing, these two organisms are similar. These two viruses are similar. So still we have to do a lot of studies in order to confirm which is correct. I'll talk about this furin cleavage site few slides later. So finally, these are the hypotheses made by scientists how coronavirus would have been emerged and transmitted from natural reservoirs to human. So if bats are the natural reservoirs, they will be having an intermediate from which they might have been transferred to human. So in case of SARS-CoV 2003, palm civettes were found to be the intermediate, bats are the reservoirs. There are reports which are supporting this hypothesis. Similarly, dromedary camels or the intermediate for MERS-CoV. In case of SARS-CoV-2, there is another claim that pangolins may be the natural reservoir, right? And if pangolins are the natural reservoir, how bats have spreading the viruses to human beings? That question is there. It is not yet answered. Similarly, if bats are the natural reservoirs, how they were transferred to pangolins? Because pangolins are not carnivorous, they are actually insectivorous. They'll eat only insects. They have no contact with bats. Recently, some studies are, some reports are telling us that pangolins are also infected with coronaviruses, SARS coronaviruses, meaning they are causing infection in the pangolin. So the hypothesis will not be possible because natural reservoirs will be having the virus, but they will not be getting that disease. They will be used as a reservoir, as a place of multiplication of the viruses. So since pangolins are getting infected by the virus, it could not be the reservoir, right? So we all have this scenario from where it came from which organism and how it is spreading. Still, we are lagging in many things in our understanding. There are some missing links. When we are getting all these links, only then we'll get the complete picture of the puzzle. So what are these? What are the things we need to answer more? First thing, travel trouble. So horseshoe bats, as I told you, they are actually fly low and they'll be fly slow as well as low over the ground. So they cannot fly faster. The closest relative of SARS-CoV-2 viruses are RATG13. This RATG13 viruses were found in the Yunnan caves. Yunnan is a place which is located 1,500 kilometers from Wuhan. This slow flying bats, how come they can travel from Yunnan to Wuhan to cause the disease? That is first question to be answered. And pangolins, about pangolins, the green color area is actually the habitat of pangolins. It is in the you can find where Wuhan is located. So because of the trading activities and wet markets of the China, they are doing this trading activity and they are getting these pangolins from their habitats and they are bringing that pangolins to Wuhan and all other places in China. So because of this anthropogenic activities, like human activities, it may be spreaded. How these pangolins from here, they would have been taken. Actually, from wild animals, consuming wild animals as food is not legal even in China. But this illegal trade activities is being carried out. And as I told you, the southern regions of China have a dietary tradition favoring freshly slaughtered game meat, which implies a huge trafficking industry dedicated to live animal trading in specialized markets called wet markets. So to these wet markets, many wild animals are transported from various parts of the continent. So these are the possibilities. The possibilities may be like, it may be naturally transmitted to humans from bats, right? They have mentioned two common horseshoe bats. By natural transmission or direct transmission to human, it may be happened, or because of hunting the bats. But this is again a question mark because these bats are very small in size. It cannot be eaten as a meat. I told you it will be weighing only in grams. So this possibility is the probability of this is very less. And from these bats, it has been transferred to other animals, which are called as intermediates like civet cats or pangolins. This may be possible. These civet cats are hunted and it was taken to the wet markets. From the wet markets, it may be transferred to humans. That possibility is there. Similarly, from pangolins also, it may be possible. Here, again, the question is, from that directly it is going to the other animal, intermediate animals, or when they are caged along with other animals, this lateral transfer of viruses are happening. That is again another question mark. So all these are coming under anthropic transmission, meaning because of the interruption made by the human to the wildlife, it is happening. So that is again a question mark. All these questions we need to answer by doing a lot of research. Next is clinical reports. What clinical reports are saying about these emergence? When coming to 2003, the clinical reports are very clearly indicating that the first 4 patients, the clinical reports of all the 4 patients were given. So out of these 4 patients, 3 patients, they had direct contact with the wet market. So these are different clinical reports, and such clinical reports are giving evidences for us. And also it is important to know how the disease emerged so that we can stop the next pandemics, or we can actually prevent ourselves from upcoming diseases. So similar such clinical studies are available for SARS-CoV-2, where they have studied 41 patients of Wuhan. And interestingly, the first patient, who was reported in December 1st, 2019, he has no relationship with the seafood market or wet market in China. So all other patients, many of the other patients, they have found a relationship with the wet market. And another interesting finding was this first person, who was admitted in December 1, 2019, he has no contact with all other patients who got infection later. So these 2 findings are giving us a question that it may be the emergence of COVID-19 maybe happened before December 2019. So as I told you, when you consider about the first patient at Wuhan, the symptom, the onset date of the first patient identified was December 1st, 2019. None of his family members developed fever or any respiratory symptoms, and he has no epidemiological link with other patients, other later cases. The spread started even before December 1, 2019. That could be the question mark. And to answer this question, some researchers also reporting and claiming that individuals with similar symptoms may have presented themselves to hospital as early as November 2020. So this researcher, Ma et al., they are reporting that the first person who presented with similar cases was a male patient of 55-year-old, and he was having the same symptoms, and he was admitted in the hospital with the same symptoms. If that is the case, the origin again will become a question mark, from where the emergence has happened. And the next thing is gain of function studies. Gain of function research, very important research, that alters an organism or a pathogen in a way that increases the pathogenicity or transmissibility. So why we have to increase the virulence or transmissibility is that we will be finding out who will be the targets, and we will be finding predict upcoming outbreaks or upcoming emerging infectious diseases, and to develop vaccines and therapeutics. So many such studies were carried out already, gain of function studies, right? One such study was the PREDICT project. PREDICT project was funded by US government for influenza viruses, to check the upcoming influenza virus event, so that they can design a vaccine before the viruses started spreading. But many controversial or objections were there from different scientists for this gain of function studies. So similar gain of function studies were also carried out for coronaviruses. So after 2003 outbreak of coronavirus, SARS-CoV, people started looking for viruses in all the bats. They have collected many bat species and found out a lot of viruses. So this is one such example of a paper who found out many different viruses in various places of China. Similarly, many people have reported more than 200 coronaviruses. Till now, more than 200 coronaviruses have been reported by various people. And gain of function studies were also carried out. So now where the link is missing is that though they have studied all these things, a very pathetic pandemic is now happening, which is worse than any other pandemics that have happened before in the history of our Earth. So why these gain of function studies did not help the researchers, where we are lagging, that is again to be answered. As I told you, this is just an example of coronavirus, how many coronaviruses were isolated from various bats. So including this Rhinolophus affinis, which is the horseshoe bat, which is having the virus RATG13, that was isolated in 2013. Coming to furin cleavage site, furin is an enzyme which is expressed in human cells. This furin is actually used for our protein cleavage. After synthesis of proteins, it has to be modified. So this furin will be cutting the protein so that if a longer polypeptide chain is there, it will be cut and it will be folded into a native form of protein. So viruses are evolving with this furin cleavage site so that they can utilize our furin for their purpose. So here SARS-CoV-2 is also using our furin. How they are using? They have a furin cleavage site so that our furin enzyme will go and cut the coronavirus. So that two subunits will be separated in the spike protein. This furin cleavage is essential for the coronavirus to enter into the cell. So otherwise, if furin is not there or furin cleavage site is not there in the virus, it cannot enter into the cell. So this furin cleavage site is again giving us, some ways for doing research. So actually, furin cleavage site is comprising of amino acids which are basic in nature. Basic amino acids, as we know, arginine, lysine, like that. So such amino acids will make a motif in which the furin will sit and cut the particular protein. So this furin cleavage site is found in many viruses, including beta coronaviruses, MB viruses, and so many other viruses. But surprisingly, it is actually unique to SARS-CoV-2 in the other lineage B. So it should be evolved from some other organism. So from which virus this SARS-CoV-2 evolved? So the closest relative of SARS-CoV-2 is RATG13 as well as pangolin's coronavirus. Both of these viruses do not have furin cleavage site. Only this SARS-CoV-2 is having the furin cleavage site. Surprisingly, this another important thing about this furin cleavage site is it contains a doublet of arginine, RR. So this doublet of arginine is not found in many of the viruses, especially the closest relatives are not having this doublet R. And this arginine is actually coded by different codons. We all know that codon bias will be there, codon bias. Many codons will be there for a single amino acid. So here actually in SARS-CoV-2, arginine is actually encoded by 6 different codons, right? So here it is actually this arginine, which is especially present in the furin cleavage site, was coded by CGG codon. This CGG codon is available only in this furin cleavage site, not in any other arginine. All the arginines which is present in the SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, 42 other arginines are there in SARS-CoV-2. None of them are coded by CGG codon. Only these 2 arginines which are present in the furin cleavage site are coded by the CGG codon. I'll show you the, you can see the nucleotide sequence. The CGG is coding arginine. So another CGG is coding arginine. So all other arginines are actually coded by various different codons. As I told you, 6 different codons are available. So here again, we have some missing piece of puzzle. So we need to find out to fix this. Maybe other coronaviruses are available from which it has been evolved. RATG13 and pangolin CoV are not the ancestors of SARS-CoV-2 that we need to answer. So as a conclusion, what we can say, how we can prevent by gain of function studies, like after this also we can go and search for viruses in bats. We can find out all the bat coronaviruses and we can design a vaccine before it could emerge. But it is better to prevent than after, doing some gain of function studies or any other thing. So the person, Kwok Yung Yoon, a virologist at the University of Hong Kong, who co-discovered the SARS virus, SARS-CoV-1, he is telling that it reinforces the notion that we should not disturb wildlife habitats and never put wild animals into markets. Respecting nature is the way to stay away from the harm of emerging infections. So with this, I'm closing my session. I'm now open for questions.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, ma'am. Dear participants, now the session is wide open for your inquiries. If you have any doubts regarding this presentation, you may ask. Dear participants, I repeat, if you have any queries regarding this presentation, you may ask now. The session is wide open for the discussion.
You can also type your queries in the chat if you want.
Participants, you can kindly unmute yourself and then go ahead with your questions.
Sir, please disable the chat.
Dear participants, the chat box has been enabled. If you have any queries, you may put your queries in the chat box. Similarly, we have open, you have the accessibility to unmute yourself and then you can have your queries.
Ma'am,
Yes.
ma'am, what is the function of furin cleavage site, ma'am?
Actually, furin cleavage site is a sequence of amino acids
Okay,
which will be cleaved by furin. This furin cleavage site is present in the virus spike protein, and furin will be produced by our cells. So furin is an enzyme which will go and bind in the cleavage furin cleavage site and it will cut at that place. So spike protein of SARS-CoV-2 is having two subunits which should be separated so that it can attach to cells and it can enter into cells. So only then the receptor binding domain will be accessible to the ACE2 receptor of our cells. So this furin cleavage is important for the virus to enter into the cells. So because of this furin cleavage site only, this virus is easily entering into our cells through our respiratory tract.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
There is a question from the chat. What is the difference between SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV? All the coronaviruses actually they are genetically different. So SARS-CoV-2, CoV and MERS-CoV, the difference is like why they are named like that because initially SARS, the name SARS was given because they are causing respiratory illness, severe acute respiratory syndrome. That is why it was named as SARS. And MERS is named because of Middle East respiratory syndrome because it started from Middle East countries, started from Jordan and spreaded all over the Middle East countries. And genetically, they are actually different. Lot of coronaviruses are there which are having different, as like we know same family of organisms, but some genetic variations will be there because of the evolution. Even SARS-CoV-2 is now evolving with I mean, within 6 months or a short period of time, they are evolving with new gain of function, right? So that is the difference, genetic variations. And another question, could we tell these reservoirs as carriers as well? What might be the reason for bat being a reservoir for many of these viruses? So carriers are somewhat different from reservoirs. Natural reservoirs, sometimes they can be the environment also, not only, it may be a non-living thing also. Sometimes the environment could act as a reservoir. They are actually storing that particular pathogenic organism. It may be a virus or bacteria. So it will be residing in that particular organism or in the particular environment. That is called as a reservoir. But carrier is someone who is carrying that virus even after the symptoms are gone. For example, a person is getting affected with tuberculosis. He will be cured. After curing also, he may carry some microorganisms in him. So he may spread it at any time to another person. That he is called as a carrier. That is the difference between reservoir and carrier. Is there any drug to block the furin cleavage site of the virus? That is a good question. Furin cleavage site is not actually, I think, druggable because it's not a domain or a subunit of a protein. So druggability is like we should be able to make your drug to sit on that particular protein. So, but we can actually stop furin cleavage sites by using monoclonal antibodies, particularly designed for that. It may be possible.
There is
Why
another
can't
question.
we?
Yes, I will read the
Yes.
question. Why can't we use drugs to treat SARS and MERS to treat SARS-CoV-2 as they are of same genus of virus?
Okay.
The question goes.
Right. As you say, I mean, you are saying, since, I mean, if drugs are available to treat the previous coronaviruses, they can be used to treat SARS-CoV-2, right? That is what your question is. But the drugs which are designed for SARS and MERS are actually as like SARS-CoV-2, drug designing is being under research. They are also under research. Since it was not a big problem as like SARS-CoV-2, many of the researchers were not involved in designing of the drugs. One thing. Another thing, as I told you, they are mutating in a very fast rate. If you calculate the mutation rate of SARS-CoV-2, there are reports available how much they are mutating in within a particular period of time. The mutation rate is very high than any other viruses. So a particular drug may not be inhibiting a virus, right? And as I told you, druggability of the target is very important. Druggability in the sense the drug should go and sit on that target. If you are taking an enzyme from the virus as a target, it should go and sit. So it should be same in all the three viruses. Only then the same drug can be working in all the three. If we find a target which is same in all these three viruses and it is not mutated over a period of time, this drug same drug can be used for all the three viruses. It is possible. I think there is another question. Can you tell the component present in vaccine and how they work against virus? So for your information, we have an upcoming talk on vaccines detailedly. Anyhow, vaccines may have the whole virus, killed virus, or a part of the virus, or only a particular right small portion of the virus. So it may provoke immune response in the human, right? The components which may be present in these virus, I mean, in the vaccines are whole viruses, as like Covaxin is actually a killed vaccine, which is having the whole virus, but in a killed form. Or it may be part of the virus. Subunit vaccines are also available. Only one part of the virus, like only one particular subunit or a part of a protein can be used as a vaccine to provoke the immune response in human.
Ma'am, I got one more question. Ma'am.
Okay.
Are these purine cleavage sites conserved among the different variants, like that Vijitra has asked?
Okay. So as I told you, this purine cleavage site is new for SARS-CoV-2 in the lineage B of beta coronaviruses. When we compare to RATG13, which is the closest relative of SARS-CoV-2 and as well as pangolin CoV, this purine cleavage site is not present in those two viruses. RATG13 is not having purine cleavage sites, so as pangolin. Pangolin CoV also do not have this purine cleavage site. It is present in SARS-CoV-2. But purine cleavage sites are available in other beta coronaviruses and other family of viruses, other family of alpha coronaviruses and other coronaviruses. They are available. They have sequence similarity. But we are claiming, all the other researchers are claiming that SARS-CoV-2 have been emerged from RATG13 as well as either RATG13 or from pangolin CoV. So those two viruses do not have purine cleavage site. I showed it in one of the pictures. So this is these two viruses, they do not have the cleavage site, purine cleavage site. They are present, this cleavage site is present only in the SARS-CoV-2. Probably an anti-idiotypic vaccine against these purine cleavage sites would work well. Yeah, that may be true. Any other questions?
And what about the different variants like the Indian, UK variant, and all that about they're asking about the different variants, why it is variant, what are the difference between them, like that? The same Vijitra has asked another question.
Okay. So as I told you, this is a fast evolving virus. We have different variants in a short period of time. The virus has the outbreak was first reported in December 2019. Within 1.5 years of time, there are different variants. So especially this variation is because of the mutation that is happening in the spike protein. The spike protein is getting mutated very fastly. That is why there are different variants, and that is why there are different waves. So each variant is creating a particular infection. So once a variant is coming and people are getting infected and they are acquiring the herd immunity, meaning they are getting immunized against that virus. After that, the spike protein modifies and then it is evolving into a new form and coming as a different variant, right? And till now they were reported like beta variant, gamma variant, delta variant. Now delta plus is reported, and epsilon variant is also reported in one country. I forgot the name of the country. Okay, it may be circulated among people. What about the different variants like, okay, referring to the furin site? Uh, Referring to the furin site, I mean, furin site is actually only 5 amino acids. In that, no further mutations was found out, as you told. So targeting that furin site, as you told, that may be a good approach, right? So there is no mutation in furin site. Mutations or variations are found only in the spike protein. I think I have answered your question, Vijitra, I'm sorry.
One more from Kavya Sri. Is there any training programs or workshops for students in your concern? If that anything so means, you can ask, you can answer him.
Yes. Actually, right now, because of the current undergoing pandemics, we are not providing on-site training, and we have started with some online workshops. I'll be keeping in touch with you so that I can circulate. I mean, you can mail us to learn@biozine.com to inquire about our upcoming events, upcoming workshops, and training programs. So we are about to resume our training programs in short, probably by the end of this month or in the next month. So we'll be updating all those things in LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We have pages in all these things, as well as you can mail to us through learn@biozine.com. So you'll be getting reply within 2 working days. So all details you can get from there, like schedule, day-wise schedule, as well as fee details, everything.
Another question, ma'am. Has there been any such similar viral strains which have been known to mutate as quickly as COVID, which have not been as widespread as this? Does this mutation have anything remotely close to something which can be engineered? It's another question from Abhinav Aditya.
Right, that is actually a good question. So as like coronaviruses, influenza viruses will also be having are also having a high rate of mutation, as you might have seen from its occurrence. Like we have found we have encountered more variants like H1N1, H2N2, like that. So many variants are there. They are also mutating very fastly, but they are not as deadly as coronaviruses. They are also causing lower respiratory tract infection, as like coronaviruses. So they are other highly mutating viruses. when compared to coronaviruses. But compared to coronaviruses, especially the SARS-CoV-2, is actually having more mutation rate than influenza virus. Until we encounter SARS, we were thinking that influenza virus was the highly mutating virus. But now SARS-CoV is overtaking influenza viruses. You might have heard that US people in US are getting vaccinated every year for influenza virus. So they'll be predicting what virus will come in this year, and they'll be getting ready with the vaccine. And every year they'll be having a new vaccine for influenza virus. That is what I have mentioned in the talk, like gain of function studies. So gain of function is like they'll be predicting what is going to happen in the future by increasing the virulence of the virus, or they'll be testing whether particular virus which is isolated from one animal is having the ability to infect humans. If need to design a drug, what are the possibility we need to refer about the virus? As I told you, if you are going to design a drug, you need to check a target which is druggable. So target is, it may be a protein or enzyme, or a structural protein as like spike protein, or an enzyme which is like the polymerase enzyme, which is, transcriptase, which is present in the virus, or it could be any other proteins. Only thing, it should not be undergoing mutations very fast. As I told you, spike protein is undergoing mutations very fast. That could not be, that will not be a very good drug target. So we can choose some other enzyme or protein which is there in the virus. And essentially, if you are selecting the target, if it is inhibited, that particular target, if it is stopped, the virus should stop its replication. In such a way, we should design find out the drug. And if the bottleneck is finding a target, after that you can design a drug.
Dear participants, if you have any queries, you may ask now. Ma'am, I hope there won't be any queries from chat box or from any participants.
Okay.
So is it okay, ma'am? Shall we wind up the session?
Yeah, sure, sir. And thank you all. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you all for your patience in listening, as well as for asking a lot of questions that showed that how enthusiastically you were listening to the talk. And I request everyone to continue the same participation, same enthusiasm in the upcoming talks. Once again, I thank all the organizers, HOD ma'am, Mr. Rajasita Rama, J.L. Karthik sir. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. But we got a question from Mr. Jay Prabhakaran. He is asking that, is there any antigenic shift reported in SARS-CoV-2 so far?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Is there any antigenic shift reported in SARS-CoV-2 so far? It's his question.
Okay. So antigenic shift is nothing but the what we are talking about, right? Mutation. So that is why we are having a lot of variants. Antigenic shift is like if you are considering spike protein as an antigen for vaccination. So there is actually definitely an antigenic drift is there. So it is continuously changing its structure. So it is reported, and that is why we are getting waves, and that is why we are getting different variants.
Okay, ma'am. Fine. Thank you once again, ma'am. Sai Navya, you may proceed.
Yes, sir. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to place on record our hearty thanks to Ms. Christina Rossi for the perfect support. I also extend my thanks to Dr. Tamil Selvi, Mr. Raja Sitarama, Mrs. Janani, Mr. Jayvil Karthik, and to my friends for the enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. Thank you, everyone.
So thank you so much, ma'am, for this wonderful session. As we have learned the basic knowledge about how this SARS virus is having that a huge impact and what are the different types what we are experiencing in this pandemic. So once again, I thank you. I thank you from my side for this wonderful session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all.